About a year ago, Misties were granted a gift, The Final Sacrifice, one of the greatest episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000 ever, returned to YouTube on the MST3K channel. And this year, we're getting another gift, but this time directly from the film's director and composer, Tjardus Greidanus and Rob Skeet. And launching on Thanksgiving Day is a campaign for the making of The Final Sacrifice. And with me here, Rob, Tjardus, thank you for agreeing to have a conversation with me here about this. This is exciting news, I think,
Hmm.
for everybody that's a fan of that episode and also just in general who appreciate the movie as a whole. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Happy to be here.
Great. So yeah, I mean, just to kind of give a little bit of quick background on, of course, how I know of The Final Sacrifice. I mean, of course, it comes from Mystery Science Theater. It's a movie that I always tried to figure out, it's like, is it something that I might have seen on cable, in the 90s at some point? And I was like, I don't know. I think it's just the Mystery Science Theater episode. And it is one of the best episodes. And I do think, as I mentioned before we started recording, that sometimes I think some of those best episodes are the ones that are actually fun movies to watch regardless of whatever they're poking fun at or the quality itself. And I think that the final sacrifice, and of course our great hero Rowsdower is just one of the greatest things ever. So I just appreciate the movie on top of the episode of Mystery Science Theater. So, but a couple of questions that I wanted to kind of start with, and I think Charles, this probably goes to you, is what were some of the inspirations that you had for the final sacrifice? I know you were pretty young when you made the movie, but what was kind of swirling around when you decided this was what you wanted to do?
Yeah, well, I have been making movies for, since I was 12 years old, right? And I
Hmm.
grew up in Holland. I lived in Holland until I was 15, and then I moved to Canada. But I mean, one of the first films that I was really inspired by was actually King Kong, the old sort of
Oh yeah.
1933 version. And I remember that I just agonized about, wanting to buy a Super 8 camera because that's all that there was back then. There was no video really to speak of. So I could make my own King Kong film, and I learned how to do that with a stop motion, little model like about this big with wireframe and all that kind of stuff, and I had him climb the Statue of Liberty and fighting little airplanes that were like flying on like curtain rods.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I was always into filmmaking anyway, right? And I made a number of shorts there. I would, my friends and I would climb the city walls around, lived in a very old little city, the old city walls, and we would have, stage big sword fights there and then film those. So anyway, and then when I finally moved to Canada, and that was at 15, we really ended up in the middle of nowhere. It was about 12 hours north of Calgary, if you can imagine that. There's
Oh wow.
nothing over there, right? It's just farming and oil, the oil business is there. And then there is a lot of snow, very cold. I mean, it was really 9 months of 40 below zero kind of thing. So, and we were poor, at that point. We got a really bad exchange on the guilder that we had, and back then it was a guilder still. So it took me a couple of years before I started making films again. But there were also all these opportunities all at once. Like, there were horses there that I could access because it was, of course, farm community. Got my hands on guns, which was a really super exciting for a European boy, because that's completely out of our, it's very difficult to get a hold of guns, and also just being able to make things like in shop class. I started making swords and things like that. For another film that I did. And so then I did this film that was an 80 minutes epic called The Fire Within. And it was about the Spanish invasion in the Netherlands back in the 16th century, right? And at that point, I mean, I thought I was going to be a farmer, I mean, there wasn't a heck of a lot of cultural inspiration over there. But I did these things with my high school friends, we had horses involved and we made costumes and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, uh, uh, I was just, of course, a teenager, so I was kind of, working all week to prep for a weekend shoot, and then we would shoot all weekend, and then and I was writing it as I was going along. There was no, not like I wrote the script and then, actually methodically went about making the movie, let's say. But to my surprise, that film was, it was made for like $500. It was no money at all, and it won this award, and that kind of encouraged me a little bit. Like I was flown into Edmonton, and I went, to the award ceremony, and it was televised and all that kind of stuff, and I met all these filmmakers there, and it was not a good film. I mean, it was very amateurish, of course. But I think the kind of the size of the ambition of the project is really what sparked with people, And I got a bunch of press on that. And then I started thinking, like, well, if I can make this for $500, what can I do for just a little bit more?
Mhm.
It was kind of like that, right? It's like, because I always have been very, very hands-on, just making building sets and all those kind of things. And I remember in the library at the Spirit River High School, there was a copy of Sid Field's screenwriting. So for the first time, I actually wrote a script, like you're supposed to, with a three-act structure and the plot points and all that kind of stuff. And that became my Bible, And I remember spending a long time, writing that in the library on my, hours off or whatever. And so that's when I wrote it. I wrote it there, and I was always interested in cults and chases, and of course this was also around the time of Indiana Jones and all these Spielberg movies that were coming out that were really super exciting, right? Of course, I was so naive to think that I could actually make an Indiana Jones for $1.95. That was a big part of it, right? But anyway, yeah, and then I really kind of, I saved up my money. I went to work construction, all those kind of things, and eventually I was trying to find a way to get this movie made, and
Mhm.
and did a lot of prep work already. Was building sets, and and that took a couple of years. I was looking for an opportunity because back then, video or shooting it on your cell phone was just not available. You had to
Right.
shoot with 16, and that was expensive. Renting equipment, all those kind of things was really expensive. So, and then I eventually got into film school. That's that film that won the award got me into film school, and I saw an opportunity there to make the film. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of
Yeah, that's
started.
no, that's yeah, that's really cool. So were each of those, so that first movie and then the final sacrifice, they were both self like financed at that point, or did you have to go
Yeah,
out and
yeah,
raise a
yeah,
little extra
totally.
money?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. Yeah,
S-
yeah. So it was mostly self financed, and I think I got a few of my high school teachers, to put put some money in, kind of
Yeah.
thing, right? And they were, kind of tickled by it, and so yeah, that's where it came from.
Wow. I mean, that's always interesting to hear, because like, we live in the era now where it's like you said, it's like anybody with a cell phone, anybody with a halfway decent, probably for less than the amount that you spent to make this movie 35 years ago, you're getting a camcorder or something that's doing like
Right.
HD, and it's all consumer grade now, right? So it's,
Yeah.
it's kind of it is always interesting to hear about like those, how people were kind of self-funding their own movies before
Right.
that era. So yeah, that's really cool.
And and
um
and and it kind of was in the zeitgeist, People started making movies, and you would see somebody, making a movie for next to nothing, and then all at once it was picked up by Warner Brothers, So it was like,
right.
this incredible opportunity. I mean, that really started the whole independence thing, and you got Six Flags and videotape and Pulp Fiction, and it was possible then.
Mhm.
It's gotten much more complicated now with streaming and everything. It's a whole different world now, in terms of that. But it seemed possible. So
Yeah.
and of course, I mean, also being incredibly naive helps because then you don't know what you're going to run into, and it just becomes about constantly problem solving, trying to bring value to the project in a way, and yeah, and pushing it forward, pushing that boulder up the mountain really is what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. And so, Rob, where did you come in at this point to be, because obviously now there's a need for a score. I mean, where did you come into this story?
I'm trying to remember how we actually could. You got my name from somebody, and at that particular time, I was writing jingles. I was doing for the most part writing commercial jingles, and just starting out doing that kind of stuff. And I had done some music for like learning videos and stuff like that, but nothing to this level of complexity. And I remember when we first met, um, and Tjardus kind of alluded that he was, inspired by these Spielberg films. Well, he says, "I want a John Williams soundtrack." Can you do it? And I remember doing a little demo piece for like Tjardus gave me. It was the bicycle chase where he jumps on the bike and then the guys are chasing after him. That little piece he gave me on VHS and said, "What can you do with this?" And I just went to town on it and said, about a week later, I think I got something. What do you think? And he just said, "Yeah, that's just like that."
It was amazing. I was so impressed because I do remember I auditioned a number of different composers,
Oh, I didn't
and
know
and
that.
and yeah, and Rob Skeet came, just head and shoulders above all of it. I was just so amazed, and again, I was completely naive, of course, when I asked for a John Williams score, but what is so interesting about it is I mean, I really believe that. That music is was so essential also to the whole success of the film. I mean, it's part of its DNA.
Yeah.
I mean, what I have found over the years is that many times, the sort of the percentage of what it takes for something to kind of resonate with the public can only be like a very tiny few percent,
Mhm.
and Rob's score, just kind of shoveled that on there in shovelfuls, I would say. We can mix my metaphors there. It really, yeah, it became it's iconic with the film. I don't think you can separate it,
The
and
whole
and it
thing
might
was
never have been heard of, of the film
no.
altogether if it hadn't been for that score. I mean, I really do believe that.
The
Yeah.
whole thing was done on a Roland W30 sampler, basically. And I remember, so back then you had to go get sounds and load them on a floppy disk, and you loaded all your sounds into it first, and then you took that disk out, and then you could start composing once you had your sounds loaded. And I remember going down to the local music store where I had actually bought the thing in the first place, and they said, "Well, we have a whole library of sounds, so but you're only limited to what can fit on one floppy." So I'm going, okay, well, I need some orchestral stuff, and I need some strings, and I need a harp, and so I basically had to build my orchestra on a floppy disk.
I'm glad that you brought that up because I wanted to ask you about like, okay, well, how did you compose that? Because I've always been curious about that too. Like even to this day, you've got very small independent movies with these big scores at times, and it's like, what is that all of the budget? Did it all? But it sounds like that it was just you take this library and you say these are the instruments or these are the notes that I want, and then it composes it from there. Is that
Well, no. Well, nowadays that's exactly. Now you just type into AI and say I want this that lasts this. But yeah, no. Back then you basically had to choose what instruments you're going to use, and then you hit it. It has a sequence recorder kind of thing, and so I remember for the project buying a VHS TV that, so it was a TV with a VHS
Yeah.
built into it, sitting in front of me, watching each scene and just kind of, just and it was just coming out of my brain. Other parts got a little more complicated where I had to actually go in and plug them in note by note, sort of thing. But for the most part, it was like pick an instrument, play that, layer it down, and go to the next one and add things to it, and just hope to God it worked. And there was no such thing as sync or anything like that. So I basically had to look for spots in the film, hit play, go back 5 seconds into three, two, one, and go.
Yeah. I mean, that's really interesting. Of course, I'm not, I always read music, but I never was like very musically, so I never knew how some of that stuff would have been created without the full orchestra. I mean,
Yeah.
you always see that you always see that in like some special edition DVD where he's like, oh, there's John Williams, watching the movie and conduct. There's no special feature for the guy, like you said, pausing it, going back 5 seconds, pause. Maybe there should
Yeah.
be. That would be interesting.
And you know what? I had no idea how lucky I was with Rob, of course, because I had no comparison, you know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
remember that first time that you showed me your thing, and I was just totally blown away by it, bro. And it was funny because you played the whole thing, and then I think you hit a key on your thing. You had this huge applause coming afterwards,
Right,
and I was
right.
already sold, but it was such a nice creative touch, because it was like, where does all these people come from all at once? It was pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, hey, you have to sell yourself, right? If you're if you're giving them it's like, hey, this is what I put together. Hey,
Right,
yay,
right, right. Yeah. And speaking of too, I think for those people who don't know, Rob in many ways was the conduit to the fans because for the longest time I didn't follow that. We'll probably get into that, but yeah,
Yeah,
so anyway, doing that interview of a making of was really fun because we could just there were so many things I didn't know. I hadn't been following it at all, so it all was new to me. When we got together and talked about that. Yeah.
that's cool. That's very cool. So I guess that my next question would be, so like, did you also audition all of your actors too, or did you know any of them going into the filming of the movie?
No, no. I was actually, I was already starting to work production, on weekends and things during film school. And I was just kind of trying to line everything up. So first of all, I tried to pitch the project in my film class, because that's usually what happens in film schools. Everybody gets to pitch their project, and they can only do a couple of them. And I actually remember pitching this with in a black tank top with a mask with my AK-47. I had the props all already figured out and everything. Walking into that class, into the classroom where I pitched the thing, and I had wallpapered all the walls with all my storyboards all the way around the room, because I was really trying to impress them. But anyway, it got nixed actually. They picked smaller projects, less ambitious project because it was kind of out of the out of the film courses league, they thought, right? With all the
Sure, sure.
stunts and everything like that. They thought this is never. We don't want to do this. So in any case, but yeah, I was always kind of looking around how to do that, looking for opportunities. And I got to be I was a production assistant in the office of a film that was being shot at the time called Primo Baby. It was about horse racing, I think. And I remember going through their filing cabinets, of all the people who had submitted resumes, and that's where I found Bruce. And yes, and Christian too, for that matter. I think I found both of them there. And yes, I brought them in to do auditions, and I thought they were both great. I mean, Christian, I think, is a really good actor, and very. And I think one of the things, I mean, I've said this to Rob too, is why it caught on with fans is because we were doing it completely earnest, you know?
Hmm.
I mean, we were not, you know, kind of it was never tongue in cheek. We were totally
Right.
serious about this thing, right? which which is so interesting how that in a way, you know, and then of course, you know, Mystery Science Theater did their own thing. It was own part of the equation of the whole thing. I mean, I totally
Yeah.
get that, right? It's without Mystery Science Theater, it you know, it would have had a quiet burial somewhere, you know, because that's before the internet. That's what kind of happens, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I did audition them, and I started buying vehicles. You know, I bought that truck for like $300 or something like that, and that Torino, which I painted black with a roller and latex paint in somebody's backyard. You know, and you know, brought in the actors. I mean, they brought in a number of different changes of clothes, and that's how I picked the costumes. You know, kind of, you know, there was no money for anything. It was just
Yeah.
all, you know, make it work somehow, right? And you know, I mean, I did do a lot of thinking, and there was a long incubation period, obviously. I mean, years to, you know, before I actually shot it, because I knew that once you start shooting, that's when you really start spending money. You know, then you
Hmm.
have to, you know, that's where the money is, right? So, and then at a certain points, I just got my opportunity in film school that there were no other projects going on, and I went to check out all the gear, you know, like an Arri, you know, 16 millimeter camera and HMI lights, and there was a Pee Wee dolly there, and all this stuff, you know, a Nagra, you know, I mean, all that stuff, and I checked it out for 4 weeks, I think, and then you know, returned it after that, and that was the shoot, you know, and I really, most of the people who were working on the crew was a crew of like 5 people, I think, you know, and everybody was wearing several hats, of course, you know.
Sure.
And yeah, you know, most of them came out of film school. They were, you know, the kind of the second year of the cinema technical course that was being taught there. And so they knew a lot more than I did already, you know, and found my actors, and we just started shooting it, you know. It was
Yeah.
it's interesting because, you know, you can do as much planning as you want, but when you get the set, it's a whole different story, you know? And
Right.
you can just never run, you know, you can just never plan enough in a sense, because there's so many unknowns constantly, you know? And I think each film too, you have to kind of hammer out an infrastructure for it because it doesn't
Hmm.
exist. You know what I mean? You have to figure all these things out. You got to feed people. You got to move them over there. All that organizational stuff takes up a lot of time. You know, and you know, so and you're always running out of time. You know, the sun is
Yeah.
going down, and you're losing the light, and all those kind of things. So it was a challenge. It's hard.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
it's
I
really,
mean,
really hard.
I can imagine, especially, you know, it's like you're every frame is on rented equipment, on purchased, you know, it's like
Yeah.
you can't just go back to the studio and say, oh, I need some more, you know,
Right.
need
Right.
something more for another day or something. It's
Yeah.
gotta,
Yeah.
you gotta get everything done now. And yeah, I think I mean, the characters I think are also very memorable to, I mean, obviously you got Rowsdower. I mean, that's everybody's going to want to talk about Rowsdower, but like,
Mhm.
honestly, I think Pipper might be my favorite character though, because that is a voice.
Oh, right, the rabbits. Oh.
And just the kind of like he it's almost like when he appears, it's like the movie goes backwards like 100 years, right? He's like he's coming
Right.
down from the mountains of from the
Right.
gold rush, you know. But I always think, because I also think it's like, you know, Ron Anderson, or that's Ron Anderson plays Pipper,
Yeah.
but Shane Marceau playing Sator. I mean, that's you've done something to his voice. It drops it down, and so it gives him like this. There is almost like I'm sure there's a little bit of Darth Vader influence there. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Including his theme, which,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
which is very, very close to a ripoff of the Darth Vader theme.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. 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 They really
See,
thought of that.
you see, you got your John Williams score. There it is, right
Right.
there.
Right.
Yeah.
But, you know, as far as the characters are going, I mean, you know, They were really created by the actors in so many ways, you know. I mean, you know, and you want that, of course, right? You want them to
Yeah,
bring their own personality into it. I mean, you know, that's what you want. So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, when I saw, you know, Ron Anderson's face, you know, Pipper, when I think I also got him, you know, from that filing cabinet where the casting, you know, photographs were. I mean, I looked at that face and I said, like, you know, yes, like, and
There's a
I
lot of stories in that face.
yeah, I know. And you know, I mean, at that point, look, I was 18 years, or I was 19 years old, right? So I mean, I didn't have any kind of sense of how to talk to actors, you know. That takes a long, long time and you know, to develop that, and you got to take your own acting classes and all that kind of stuff, which I've done since then, but I didn't know that back then. You know, it was just like, here's your lines, you know, go
Right.
for it, you know. And so you know, I mean, I really appreciate the cast as far as that's going because they brought their own individuality into it, which I thought was really cool. And it is really a miracle that you know that Rowsdower resonated on that level. You know, I've often wondered about that, and Rob and I speak about that in the documentary too. Is like, you know, what had to happen for all these things to kind of come together? I mean, it's not something I had control over, you know. I thought this film was like dead and buried, right? I thought it was like over. Because essentially, you know, once I finished it, I did get a distributor and they made a bunch of sales, mostly overseas sales, you know, before Mystery Science Theater got their hands on it. And then at a certain point, it just kind of petered out and I had moved on, you know, I was doing other things, right? And then suddenly I'm working on a film, I think in 2010 when I first kind of heard about it. There was a film with Rachel Brosnahan that I directed
Yeah.
my script. And somebody on the crew said to me, like, you know, he's looking at my name and he's going, did you make that film? And I had to confess, yes. How do you know about it? You know, because I hadn't thought about it for so long, and yeah, and then he tells me there's this whole thing going on, and then at a certain point, you know, I think we talked again, Rob, and you had been following it, right? I
Oh
mean, you
yeah.
had kind of seen the entire, you know, blossoming and everything of this phenomenon, you know, which is still kind of inexplicable to me, you know, like how does that happen? You know, like what were all the little steps that had to happen, you know, miraculously for this to actually you know, take off and find a fan base. I mean, it's a, you know, it's a gift, right? I mean, what can I say?
I was a huge MST3K fan back when it was still, you know, the early broadcast, season one, season two, season three kind of thing. We had all of those on VHS and stuff, so we were huge fans of it. And then a friend of mine said uh, had gotten season 10, I think, good that
I
it's
think
off.
I think it is 10, yeah.
Yeah, he had just gotten or saw the DVD sets for season 10, and he goes, Rob, your movie's on it. Your movie's. So I knew as soon as it came out, I was just absolutely floored because I was such a huge fan of MST3K that wow, I'm somebody. This is my claim to fame. Is
Well, were either of you nervous about seeing the episode, or I mean, Rob, you were a fan, so you probably had an idea
I
of what.
couldn't wait. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. A bunch of us had got together and had a screening of it, almost right after it came out and stuff, but not anywhere knowing the success that it was going to have in later years.
Well,
Yeah.
and Chartis, what did you see I mean, did you see the episode later on or
I
around that
did
time?
not see the episode until I got together with Rob. So that is one of the things that we're going to be showing also
Okay,
in
good.
in the documentary, you know. You know, I mean, I honestly did not know how brutal it was going to be, right? Do I want to do this to myself? There's a lot of power in not knowing. It can't hurt with
Sure,
an idea, right? And so I had no sense of it. Yeah, and I never really tapped into the whole Reddit thing either. You know what I mean? I don't even know how to enter it actually. I mean, if you can just look it up or if you have to like sign up for it. I don't know that. I heard most of those things from Rob, but yeah, I just I decided not to. And then at a certain point, I mean, when we decided to do this making up thing, Rob and I together, I was going like, well, you know what? You if you can't beat them, join them. It's like might as well own this, right? I mean, it was such
sure.
a long time ago, and look, I was learning my stuff, and I learned a tremendous amount in that film, obviously because you have no frame of reference, everybody on the crew probably knew way more than I did about filmmaking, but then, once I started working production, I moved to I did a bunch of production in Calgary. Just you know, once the shoot was done, I still needed to have money to finish up the film, essentially, right? And all
Mhm.
that post production stuff was really expensive, so it took probably about a year and a half or so before I could actually finish it. Really finish it. So I took all these kind of jobs, but the truth is, I mean, on all those films when I was just like a location scout or whatever, as a production assistant, they have exactly the same problems that we did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember laughing, when I moved to Vancouver, I got on the X-Files. I worked on the X-Files. And at a certain point, these are the first 10 episodes of the X-Files. And at a certain point, they had an old timer car there that just wouldn't start, and that had happened on my own film that the damn car wouldn't start, and everybody's complaining about it. Why didn't you buy this? Everything is your fault, of course.
Right.
You're responsible for this car, and it's just like holding up production. But I remember laughing about it because I was behind that car, push starting it together with a production designer and a couple of other people, pushing this car. And I thought, everybody has the same problems, It's they're just it's problem solving and embracing it and just improvising a lot of times, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, especially, I mean, I think the amount of improvisation or the improvisation and the budget probably go hand in
Oh
hand,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. And you know what? I also think that the need for improvisation makes a lot of good things happen, actually.
yeah,
There is,
absolutely.
there is the unexpected. It happens definitely in the acting thing, when things are not really meant to go the way they go. When somebody comes up with a really creative, solution for it and just grabs it, I mean, and
Yeah.
there is that zone to get into, I think, and that works on production and it also works in the acting world for sure. Yeah.
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 So I think, really it sounds like, so when it's kind of it coming back around to you and finding, I mean, like Rob, you were always kind of there from the start. Tjardus, you had learned about it on the set of that movie. Was it Rachel Brosnahan who asked that? Just out of curiosity, was she the one
No,
who said,
no,
"Were
no,
you?" Oh, okay.
no. Thank God.
Well, I mean, it's like,
She might have been walked. She might have walked
well,
after that.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just a fantasy. The thing is like, wow, Lois Lane watches Mystery Science Theater anyway. But
Right.
Well, and that's how rumors get started. So you run with that.
oh, okay, perfect. All right, but I'll have her answer for that if she wants to. After she
Right.
sees this,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah. No, but so and then you, like you said, Charters, you kind of just said, you know what, it's best not to see it, and then come back around when this documentary was.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's not going to hurt me. It's just not going to hurt me anymore.
No,
No
no.
matter how merciless it is actually, and actually, it was actually fun. I mean, I really enjoyed watching it, and also just seeing the movie again. I hadn't seen the movie for a long time, right? So all these memories came back, of course, and it was also really fun to reminisce with Rob about the making of the film, because we went to the relocations which was really, really cool, where Pipper's cabin, used to be, which is now apparently, bulldozed over and underground, and all the places where we did the car chase and the bicycle chase and all those kind of things. We went to those locations and it was totally cool because not much has changed actually. So that was yeah, so that was fun. And then at night we watched the movie together and it was and we filmed it, of course. So that will be definitely be put into the doc and uh and it wasn't mean-spirited. I never felt that
Oh,
it was mean-spirited, and because you can build these things up in your mind, like, oh my
Yeah.
God, what could they possibly say about this thing that I did like 37 years ago, right?
Yeah.
But it was not mean-spirited. It was just kind of fun and these guys poking at it, so
I think that's the thing that makes Mystery Science Theater very special, and why I think it does give life to a lot of not very well known movies, is that it they don't do it because they really they're doing something and watching movies that they actually end up kind of liking. They have to watch those movies like 15, 20 times or something like that.
right.
So, it's like there's some movies that are really, really torturous, but there are others like, Final Sacrifice, I think, is one of those movies that there's something to admire about it. And I think that's where they're coming from too in a lot of those
Mhm.
episodes. So yeah, I think I think that's great that it's like in a way, it's the Final Sacrifice has kind of grown and became legendary thanks to these other people finding it and then
Mhm.
letting it then kind of give that to their fans, which maybe wouldn't have seen it otherwise. So
Right, right.
yeah,
No, and it's I mean it's interesting too. I mean how Mystery Science Theater really, and I do credit them with that, has kind of, given this film a whole new life, right? Which
yeah,
is pretty incredible, And I do always go back to the idea of, look, we're filmmakers, we're really there to entertain it. People should have fun with it.
Mhm.
Even if it was unintentional. There's a lot of things that happen. But yeah, people should have fun with it. And how amazing is that? That after 37 years, and I shot it in 1988, that's when we actually shot it in the fall of 88. That people are still watching this thing, but like you can't say that about a lot of films, even of that time, that are professional big movie, that just disappeared, right?
yeah,
So I do credit, Mystery Science Theater for breathing new life into it, and I'm glad that it's still, actually, the people are enjoying it,
yeah,
and they're making fun of, they're yeah, so let them make fun of it. It's great.
yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the campaign here for the making of documentary. So that launches on Thanksgiving Day.
Hmm.
So it's you've talked a little bit about, like, okay, well, some of the stuff that you're doing within the documentary, but was this always something that, Rob, you wanted to do, or was it just something that kind of came naturally because this kind of came back around to you?
good question. Because I know we were chatting back and forth a number of times, and I can't remember whose idea it was for you to come up. Well, I mean, you decided you were going to come up and shoot, but I can't. We had a bunch of discussions in last spring about we should do something. We should do something with this, and you have no idea how big this has gotten, and you still didn't.
Anyways, still don't.
Really until we got together. But so like I had been what during the pandemic, I wanted to do a couple of house concerts on Reddit where they had it the live Reddit thing, and they on Reddit you needed to have so much karma in order to be able to broadcast. So I said, okay, I'll do an AMA. So I did an AMA back in 2020. That just went on and on and on, and people were still asking questions days later and stuff. Like it just kept on going and going. And I think I needed 1,000 karma credits, and I ended up with 30,000. So
And that was all about the final sacrifice because you have
Yeah,
your
yeah. All I
you
said
have your
is,
own show too, right? I mean, do you
yeah,
want to
yeah.
talk
Like
about that?
all I said was, I just want to, I wrote the soundtrack to this movie and go. And so,
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
and I think that, because you had posted something on Facebook a few days ago, and I mean, there's comments on there also, Rob, that's like, from the Mystery Science Theater group that was like very positive.
oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's all been positive. Like no one has ever said your score is crap. It's just it's how did you do that? And it's amazing. And
Yeah,
then
it still is amazing, you know. I mean, you know, with the primitive stuff that you had, you know, it's really amazing. But even without the primitive stuff, you know what I mean? Even if you know, if you would turn that into me right now with all the stuff that is available, you know, as far as technology is going, I'd still be amazing, be impressed by it, right? But to answer your question, Geoff, I mean, I did a lot of, you know, between doing my little tiny films everywhere, I did a lot of behind the scene documentaries, right?
Hmm.
So it used to be that, you know, you would get your DVD and you would get like 10 featurettes, how to make you know, how the movie was made. And that was a really kind of great business because you got to work on the big shows. You got to see how the big boys do it, you know. So
Hmm.
I worked on, you know, Charlie's Angels, and I worked on Public Enemies and Last of the Mohicans and Memoirs of a Geisha. And, you know, we worked for Michael Mann a lot. So, you know, that's and again, you know, I would say, you know, the filmmaking was essentially they had the same problem. You know, I mean, they
Yeah.
had all the same problems. You have all this massive infrastructure around you. You know, kind of like you know, supplying oxygen to the production. But the filmmaking was really happening between three or four people. You know, and that was the director, and the assistant director, the DP, and then of course the actors. You know, so being able to kind of witness that up close, you know, because I did a lot of camera work shooting those things, was
Yeah.
just amazing, you know, and it was like a traveling circus. And every film that you work on is like its own adventure, right? You're
Hmm.
you're going on a journey and everybody's working on the same thing. And this is the most exciting thing about the whole thing. You know, you bring people on board to help you to kind of, you know, realize a vision, you know, whether or not I'm directing or it's Michael Mann, you know, who's like way above me. Um, you know, but it is its own adventure. And then at a certain point, you know, you finish shooting and everybody goes home, you know. So
Right.
yeah, yeah, it's a cool thing. Very cool.
Yeah. So I guess let's talk about like the actual campaign. So it's going to run for the
Right.
normal, like the 31 days. What's the goal that's going to be had for it?
Well, you know, we're asking for 25,000, and actually, when we started doing the kind of the math on this, we're not going to make a lot of money on this because it is so much work just to do the campaign. You know, it has
Yeah.
been huge things, right? Coming up with prizes and getting out there. Rob has been, you know, writing different versions of the Rowsdower theme. You know, which do you want to talk about the Rowsdower theme?
Yes. Let's learn about that.
well, it's just that like it's taken on its own sort of beast unto itself. And uh, for years, people have been reaching out to me with their version of of Rowsdower Saves Us. And so then I just started having fun with it. Again, AI has just made things so incredible now that we just started thought we would have some fun with it and just start doing different versions of it. And then the last one I did was kind of a slow jam blues that that for whatever reason Reddit said, "Oh no, this was AI generated," and cut it out. And but
Oh,
it,
are you
but
kidding?
it, but it's still available on YouTube. And I have many more in the in my head. And so
I'm
so
just
yeah.
blown away by how amazing all that sounds. You know, I have no
Oh,
idea how you do that. I mean, to come up with all these different, you know, versions and different voices and, the choruses
Choirs and
yeah. It's really incredible. Yeah. So, what is fun about the making of, and, for this that we're doing the Kickstarter campaign for is that we really gonna get to tell the truth. I mean, working for the studios and all these movies, they have a movie to sell, right? I mean, that's
Right.
really what they're doing, right? So it's very controlled and everything, and publicity has their hands in it, and many times they're trying to sell a movie that they don't actually have. Like
Hmm.
the famous one was like Field of Dreams, where they're trying to sell the movie as this is not about baseball or cornfields, please. That's not what it's about. So what is it about then?
it's
Right.
about nothing.
Or or A Knight's Tale, one of Heath Ledger's first movies, which was about jousting. They didn't want to see knights. They didn't want to see jousting or horses. You know what I mean? So what is it about then, right? Studios are always afraid of what they have. Is what it comes
Right.
to, right? And look, this has so it for this one though, we have a chance to actually tell the truth of how it was done, because we have no stakes in it. You know what I mean? I mean, no
Right.
stakes in it anymore in that sense that it is. It's not. The movie is out. It's done. It's living its life out there, independent of us in a way, and it is fun to kind of pick it apart and also just wonder. I'm still in awe of how this all happened. I know never having any control over it, is like, you can't control these things. They take on a life of their own. And that is really kind of just amazing to see. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to the campaign. I think there's still a lot more to hear and see about the final sacrifice. About yeah, I saw the trailer. There's a big reveal about where Rowsdower came from.
Yeah,
So
that's,
I mean, it's I'm looking forward
we're
to
teasing. We're just teasing.
yes, exactly. And I'm teased. I'm ready. I'm ready to find out. But no, I want to thank both of you for taking this time. Just I mean, to even get this opportunity was a surprise to me, and that's always welcome and always a happy one too. So thank you so much for all of this, and I look forward to the campaign. So Rob, Tjardus, thank you again, and yeah, let's see what we can find out about the final sacrifice, everybody. All right, so link is in the description below as to where you can find the campaign. Also, link on the websites that we are posting this. Thanks again to Laura Davis, who helped set this all up. Laura had been doing co-production with Tjardus on his documentaries and his various films that he makes about scientific discoveries in medical fields and so forth. Thanks again to Tjardus Greidanus and to Rob Skeet for taking the time to chat with me. And so again, you can always find new reviews over at bmovieenema.com. And you can also hear episodes of Film Seizure and Monster Mondays over at filmseizure.com. So thank you so much, and hope this was enjoyable for everybody. Not something that B Movie Enema does very often. Actually, never before, and not something that Film Seizure does very often. So, hope everybody enjoyed that. I hope everybody is teased enough to want to donate to the Kickstarter campaign. And thank you again to everybody who joined, and thanks for everybody who's watching this. Have a good one.
Rowsdower saves us and saves all the world. He said the Flying Dutchman was ashamed of his flicks, so he pulled it down and tucked it all away. But now you get a chance to hear the